Hey, what's going on, Minnesota Viking fans? Welcome to this week's episode of the Purple People Podcast. My name is Kyle Smith, and this week I'm joined by Adam Carlson. What's up, man?
Not too much. Staying indoors a lot. It's getting a little bit warmer, so it's nice to have a little bit of that snow melting. And, of course, I live in a trailer home, so it's hot enough that the snow is starting to just slide off the roof, and it's scaring the kitties pretty bad.
That's been Nashville, where I'm at the last few weeks. Great weather 2 weeks ago this time. Last week for 5 straight days, pounded with snow, like almost 6 inches, which is unheard of. You know, in the South, where I'm from, if it happens in one day, the next day it's gone because it's melted. And it was just 4 straight days of pretty consistent snow. And now everything is 74 today. So everything is falling everywhere. Yeah. Crazy, weird weather and stuff.
Okay, I do have to ask you about something, though, because this is something I asked one of my friends that lives down in Kansas,
okay.
And I didn't know that people actually did this. Do you put chains on your tires when it snows?
I do not. I think that the way that I avoid that and going forward probably for the rest of my days is just to have a car with 4-wheel drive. I drive a Jeep Wrangler and I love it. If I had a truck, it would always have 4-wheel drive capability. No, it seems like a lot of effort. It could work, but
I've never done it. I've never known anybody that's done it outside of like commercial equipment.
Well, the other thing too for me is it's not really necessary down here. What happened here is kind of an anomaly. There's like maybe 1 or 2 days a year you'll get a white Christmas here and there or whatever, and then it's gone within 48 hours. So
for the Vikings, the chain is the salary cap.
Yeah, it is. Great transition there. Appreciate you guys that have jumped in. We're watching a couple of seconds ago. Saw a couple of people already in there. Feel free to comment. This is going to be kind of an open forum show. We're going to talk about Teddy Bridgewater and his future with the Panthers. We're going to talk about Kirk Cousins, his backup situation, franchise tag. So, yeah, this is episode 428, Teddy Throwsevelt. I definitely ripped that off the internet because I couldn't think of anything to do with this week's show. But I'm happy that we get to revisit the Teddy situation, even in 2021 going forward.
Now, there's a growing opinion on Twitter that backup quarterbacks are completely irrelevant, so bringing Teddy in to be Kirk's backup, I guess, would be silly. We got to keep that guy that hasn't thrown a touchdown.
Ever. We have the same number of NFL touchdowns as Sean Mannion. That's crazy.
Less interceptions.
Adam is being very nice and modest, and I'll try to do the same thing out of respect. But there's a guy on Twitter, I don't even remember the name because Adam shared it in the chat, but basically his opinion was that backup quarterbacks don't matter, to which we both immediately were like, Nick Foles, yes, it does. Case Keenum, yes, it does. And you can go down through history and see how much, if there's a major drop-off, it's significantly, if this is a betting odd, you're significantly going from the favorite to the underdog, and your chances of winning drop a tremendous percentage. And I don't like the Vikings' current situation at backup quarterback. I know Adam doesn't like it.
No.
So I hope that the Vikings finally do make the upgrade. That's one thing you can't knock Kirk Cousins on. We were talking about it right before the show started. Garbage stats, and he's not a winner and blah, blah, blah. But damn it, is he durable. He is the complete opposite of Sam Bradford. So in that respective department. So I'm happy that we don't have to worry about playing quarterback carousel. At least we haven't had to worry about that the last 3 seasons.
It's true. Can you imagine if we were eating Kirk Cousins' contract?
Oh.
The way that like Philly had to eat Wentz and how Detroit is eating Goffs and
Well, we can talk about that. It's the only way that's a thing is if the Vikings were to go and get a young quarterback. That only makes sense. And it's got to be a first round because you want to get the maximum potential of 5 years. But the Vikings are lucky enough to not be in that. Now, some fans we know hate Kirk Cousins. They always will. I know I was thinking about this last night. Even if the Vikings went to the Super Bowl, which would be a great accomplishment, and they lost, they would be after the heads of Zimmer and Spielman and Cousins because they didn't do it all. They haven't been there in a long time. So I think we're okay there. But like we were trying to round it back from earlier, the backup situation is not good. My only concern about bringing Bridgewater back is the money. And wonder if Carolina is going to eat some of that because his base salary last year was $8 million, guaranteed 8. This year it's going to be 10, but that's average backup money. That's what that is.
Yeah, the only way that doesn't kind of stick with Carolina is if somehow he doesn't clear waivers, which I'd be surprised if he didn't clear waivers just to take that money off the books when you sign him as a free agent.
Right. And this is from your own Adam Patrick over in the Viking Age, but report reveals why the Panthers are looking to move on from Teddy. I would at least keep him there and see if the young guy could beat him out, or if you needed to force him to whatever, that's fine. He's played the backup role. He's been a great backup. I brought it up in the chat earlier about the Drew Brees situation with the Saints a couple years ago, and he stepped in and won 5 games in a row and pretty much kept them afloat to go to the playoffs, so that was pretty crucial. But I guess it's because his arm strength, and it's just not where it used to be. It's a physical limitation. So that's really weird. It just says physical limitations according to Albert Breer, which is super vague. I guess that's a nice way of saying he can't throw the ball deep, or not what they like it. I don't know if they mean he's not mobile as he used to be, which is understandable.
I see it as a take that he doesn't fit the scheme. I think Carolina wants to push the ball down the field,
right?
Like with deeper passes, and Teddy is your quarterback. If you were going to run a short West Coast based offense, where you're just chipping at yards down the field, which honestly would have been a fantastic offense to run with Christian McCaffrey, but you know,
this would be the perfect
that way.
This would be the perfect segue to bring him up to New England. He'll do everything you need him to do in that kind of offense.
Sure,
you got to get him the weapons up there, man. I was thinking about San Francisco, but they've got Jimmy G. I highly doubt that they're going to think Bridgewater's an upgrade from that, but he is. It looks like he's going to be on the market again. He'll definitely sign with the team. I think he's only. It says his age. He's only 28 right now, going to be 29 this year. So he's still very young. I'd love to see him come back. I don't think that he'll come back to Minnesota.
No.
I think the chances of that are slim to none. But anything at this point is an upgrade over Sean Mannion, and I really hope they address that, because they can't look at, honestly, 3 seasons straight of having him as a backup and being confident with that. We know that's not actually how they feel. They'll try to mask it, but that's just a lie. Speaking of the salary cap, as it sits right now, the Vikings haven't made any moves personnel-wise. They will. This is going to be a kind of a lull in the off-season period. But the good news is every week that we do a show is 1 week closer to something we can look forward to, like the drafts or the combine or whatever. But right now, as it sits, we've said this a couple times, total liabilities in 2021 for the Vikings are $186,193,000. But the salary cap projected is to be 184.2. So, yeah.
The Vikings got 4.5 in carryover from last year, so you can deduct that. Then, of course, there's going to be some players released, restructured to free up more money. So it's going to be, I don't know if we can say a predictable offseason.
Right.
But I don't see a lot of big moves coming. I said the same thing last year, and Minnesota did a blockbuster trade and signed some players and extended others, and I don't know. I don't know how they do it. So I'll just be surprised when Minnesota turns this no salary cap situation into just making moves and making moves.
I certainly hope they do. I'm not hoping that they're going to build a super team like down in Tampa Bay, but if you could find one solid, even rotational player at a position of need, it helps out in every other way, and it's shoring up the leaks that this team has, because there are a few leaks in this team that were pretty deadly last year. I shared this last night with the guys, and give me a moment while I dig through and get you the exact number on this. But this was pretty startling to me last night. This is from Minnesota Vikings Nation on Instagram, but a frustrating stat for the Vikings last year. They were on the field for 344 drives, offense, defense combined. If only 4, which is 1.2% of those drives had turned out differently, the Vikings would have finished the season 11-5. Now, those drives would have had to have been mostly maybe turnovers or turned into points somehow, but that is infuriating. This team,
the Vikings could have had a pick 6 on every play. They'd have won every game.
Yeah, no, really. But you think about the Seattle game, the Tennessee game, that alone turned your record right around to 9-7, and you're looking at a team like the Bears not getting in and the Vikings getting a chance. Um, I see this, and I'll go ahead and say it for early on in this early offseason. We don't know who they're going to draft. We don't know who's going to sign, who's going to be cut, all that stuff. But I see this as a major bounce back season for the Vikings. And truthfully, they can't really get much worse, especially defensively. They were terrible last year.
Minnesota's offense played rather wonderfully when you break things down.
Yeah, they did. Which is why we were talking about in our chat between myself, Adam, and Kyle last night. I'm always going to be pro offense because I like watching that kind of stuff, even though the defense kind of triggers my mind, stimulates my mind, I guess, more when I break it down. But it's always fun to watch big plays, you know. And they have some wide receivers dropping in some of these mocks, and I wouldn't be mad about that. If it's a fit and it's a good value, like Justin Jefferson last year, he dropped. He's a great fit. Obviously, he's going to be a great player for a long time.
There's no way Minnesota could have anticipated Jefferson dropping that far. No mock had him dropping that far, which is why watching the draft and seeing all this pre-draft process with people putting out their mocks and everything, we have no idea what's going on. The big boards of other teams, they look nothing like what Pro Football Focus, Mel Kiper, they do their own work. I mean, who's Mel Kiper anyway?
He's a lot like your weatherman. He's wrong a lot, and he still gets paid a lot of money. So, I mean, it's good for you, Mel. I'm jealous. You're right, and you got to think on that too. Just to double down on what you're saying is, even if you have all these scouts and they're all in the same neighborhood of thought, right? I think this person is a great athlete, but needs to be polished. You know, I think this guy's a great thrower, but he's not that smart. Whatever you think about a player
who's ready now, not one we have to develop for a couple of years.
There's that part of it too. Is this guy going to be, a 10-year starter, and maybe we'll get him to progress later, or is he immediately going to change the team? Blah, blah, blah. But you got to think about each one has a different personality because we're all human. And we're all going to have our personal things, even though we don't want to let them show. Like Rick Spielman loves those late-round picks. He might tell you he might not, but he loves them. We've seen it over and over again. Each team might be thinking differently based on their situation and where they're at financially, team-wise. What if your team's really young and you need some veteran leadership? Well, I got to worry about signing all these guys in a couple of years, blah, blah, blah. What if your team's really old and you're like, I need somebody new to spark the team now? So, yeah, to answer to your point, I don't think anyone would have been able to predict that Jefferson was going to fall, number one, or to be that good. I mean, he had the best, at least for yards, best wide receiver season by a rookie ever. But I've seen that in a couple of mocks. Devontae Smith from Alabama.
Yeah.
Some other guys falling at wide receiver, and I wouldn't hate it. I honestly wouldn't. I'd much rather would see a corner or fixing either one of the lines. But if a good wide receiver is there, I'm not going to be mad at the Vikings for taking another offensive weapon because that's where the league's at.
You don't pass on a player that's the best available if it's a significant enough difference between that and the player's position of need. You don't do that. That'd just be a waste of a pick.
Trying to type here in the chat if you guys have anything you want us to talk about or you want to talk to us about, let us know.
But yeah, we've been talking a lot about what's coming up in the draft, and it's a real wild card since the combine isn't like a real thing this year, I don't think.
Mm-hmm.
And evaluating all these players is going to be really strange. So we're going to see teams just wildly vary based on what they are looking at and by player basis.
Yeah,
I wouldn't be surprised if all three of the top wide receivers, all three of them could be number one on some team's chart of wide receivers, and who knows, even the tight end that's supposed to go in the first round, he's technically a wide receiver, but that's what wide receiver or tight ends are becoming these days anyways.
Right.
Not a lot of blocking asked of them, and the ones that do block typically go later in the draft or don't get a lot of hype. But yeah, the pass catchers are going to be interesting to watch because there's absolutely no way of knowing where they're going to land, how that's going to work out. And honestly, the way this is all going so far with quarterbacks this offseason, it'll be fun to see if these quarterbacks see a lot more attention with trade ups. Because if 3-4 quarterbacks go in the top 10, that'll push that talent down even more closer to Minnesota's pick. And you might see that top linebacker drop down. And that's a tempting pick. You might see some of them cornerbacks drop down. And yeah, Minnesota's already got a couple cornerbacks that have also already shown some potential. But that defense needs a lot of help. And if you can pick up some key players, and I also do hate that Minnesota uses so many first and second round picks on corners. But I know that's Zimmer's baby. So hopefully he can work his magic there.
I hope so. And also, like you said, it's going to push everything around based on how these dominoes fall. We're going to talk about one of those dominoes that fell in the last week. They've gotten my faith back, this team, about drafting wide receivers with Jefferson, but they've had a couple misses along the way. I'm more on this team. I wish they would be able to go out in free agency and do more, but I realize that's probably not going to be the move this year based on money. I don't know, man. I would love if some of those guys fall, like a Micah Parsons or Patrick Surtain. If he fell to 14, I'd take him, and I would hope that the Vikings would jump all over that. But I feel like the Vikings are going to get a quality player at 14 regardless, because you're not waiting until the end of the round.
Yeah, I see no reason for Minnesota to move up based on the players that are available and the lack of a second-round pick. So I would be shocked if they moved up.
I think that absolutely yes. There's no reason for them to move up for anyone, because you're going to get a quality player at 14 anyways. But the other thing would be great is, I don't know who that would go for a second or what we could do for that, but if they could get a second-round pick before this draft back somehow, I think that would really level out this team, because it's a long wait from first to third round. And I think it would be significantly less important if you had a first and a second and you were missing a third. And obviously, the further down you go, I guess the less significant, because the player walk off isn't that big. But that second rounder being gone hurts a lot. Hoping they can get that
Rudy
back.
in a 5 for a 2 would be nice.
That'd be great. We were talking about that in the chat earlier too. Some people think that Kyle Rudolph is washed. I don't think he's washed at all. I just don't think that he's what he used to be.
We already know he's not happy with his usage.
No, and he could love it. He could love it somewhere else. That's a Stephon Diggs kind of comment, but he's not wrong.
Based on the tight ends behind him, though, Minnesota has no reason to invest heavily in him at this point.
Well, I think the comments too about not wanting to restructure really set the tone for what that is. If he was willing, sure, keep him. But he's made it clear that he doesn't want to restructure, and he wants to get paid like a top tight end. So maybe he can do that for somebody else. Speaking of trades, this happened, and I was shocked at first, but it makes a little sense now. Former Philadelphia Eagle, now Indianapolis Colt, Carson Wentz. He was traded, and I'm looking at the details here. Philly got a 85th overall pick in this year's draft and a conditional second rounder that can become a first if he plays at least 75% of the Colts' offensive snaps.
Remember those reports that they wanted 2 first rounders?
Yeah, okay. Good luck with that. If this is 2017, probably. But that's what makes it intriguing to be a Colt fan is Frank Reich has done a great job there. I think they're a contender. I think they're equal enough with that guy above Phillip Rivers last year. And he wasn't bad last year at all. I'm not saying that. I think that Indy getting Carson Wentz makes them just as much of a contender in the AFC South as the Titans, because the Titans have their problems. And he's going to have protection. That poor guy was getting beat up in Philadelphia, so maybe he could have a career resurgence under a coach that really helped him out.
I'm not a Wentz believer. I know you guys know that from past podcasts. I've discussed that. And you guys also know that I don't think that Phillip Rivers is a Hall of Fame quarterback by any means, but
nope.
Indy's a great spot to land.
Yep.
Because you've got a good defense there. You've got a great offense. You've got an offense that needs to replace some of its weapons as well. Like they found their running back, but they got to get some receivers. So Indy has been known to draft a lot of wide receivers, and they've been hit or miss with them. But that's kind of what I'd expect them to do this year.
I could also see them, since they're moving off of. I'm talking about Philly right at the moment. I could also see them, since they're going to probably get rid of old Zach Ertz, getting up there, getting that tight end from Florida we were talking about. That kid's going to be a major addition to any team. He's very, very, very good.
It also depends, though, on the ownership and the staff and coaches, whether or not they want to draft their own quarterback to develop.
That's true.
That's how the NFL goes, though. It's so strange. A new GM comes in, he's like, I want to change this up. And it's something that isn't really broken, but it's their team now.
Yep. That's what we were talking about earlier. This is how teams make those decisions in the war room that night of the draft, like Philly last year. How you don't take Jefferson at 21, I don't understand, but
Blows my mind.
We'll take it. But the reason I want to talk about Carson Wentz is I really wanted him to go to Chicago because I don't think he would. I think that's Philly 2.0 for him. I think that would have ended horribly, and I think it would have been great for the Vikings.
Chicago's already going to be a lot worse after losing Allen Robinson.
Yeah. They're going to lose him. I think that management, that coach in general, they're on the hot seat already. Even though they went to the playoffs, they don't look that good. They really don't. Trubisky's not the answer, so you wonder what they're going to do in the draft, if they could possibly go after one of these free agent quarterbacks. But Goff being on the Lions now, I think that if you're looking at just the quarterbacks in the North, that puts the Vikings at number 2 in the division immediately, which is great.
Lions are looking to reset. I don't see this Goff taking them to the playoffs, but this is time for Detroit to reset, restructure, get focused, build a team. And a lot of people talk about Minnesota doing their thing about restructuring and rebuilding and all this. Minnesota still has too much talent to do that. It's not that time yet.
No, not yet.
But soon, maybe.
Vices, what's up? Defensive tackle. Michael P. will be back still in the 3rd, 4th round. Yeah.
Speaking of the defensive line, I am excited about Michael Pierce being back.
Yeah.
That video of Danielle Hunter working out with his hand placement and his just massive arms swatting. Oh, I don't know what it is, but Danielle Hunter, even just watching a video of him practicing, you think this guy is special.
Mm-hmm. What's up, Michael? Want to say thanks for chiming in for both of you guys. Yeah, Vice's goal. I wouldn't be upset if the Vikings took a defensive tackle and pretty much into the first couple of rounds, because
defensive tackle, defensive end. Minnesota needs to do something to get that pass rush back, because last year was disgusting.
I'll say it until the season starts, man. The highest, or the person who had the most sacks on the Vikings last year individually was Yannick Ngakoue, and he wasn't there for half the season. So that's not a good thing. It shows you the value that Danielle Hunter has, but it also shows you just a year removed of their depth and rotation, where they were just feasting on quarterbacks and getting pressure. Even just pressure alone is enough to throw a quarterback off for an incompletion, and they just didn't have it. So,
and that alone threw things off for the young secondary, who's trying to adjust to the NFL level, and it's just quarterbacks having way too much time. You give even an average to slightly below average quarterback good time in the pocket, they will pick apart a defense.
Yeah. Yeah, I wouldn't be upset if the Vikings went defensive tackle. Wouldn't be mad if they went anywhere in the interior, the offensive line, corner. They've got a lot of positions they can address. That's why we were talking about earlier, where they're going to have a good option and plethora of talent at 14. It just depends on where they think is the most important to go. Yeah, Michael, you're totally right. Both sides of the line. And they're both equally alarming. They were both not good. The interior is not good on the offense. And same way for the defense. We couldn't stop a nosebleed. And then you need someone opposite of Danielle Hunter to create pressure. So I expect to see all those get addressed at some point in this draft.
Now, Smith and I both agree that we see Riley Reif returning at left tackle, because cutting him for what they would save isn't worth it. It's really not. If nothing, we might see a restructure or an extension for a year just to cut caps and lower cost. And I would totally understand that. And I don't see Minnesota drafting offensive tackle to develop, since they already have one in Ezra Cleveland that they're trying to figure out. And hopefully he can look a little bit better than he did last year and give some hope to being that replacement. So that leaves Minnesota looking to draft guards.
Yep.
Now, in my first mock draft over on the Viking Age, I had Minnesota taking a guard at 14. Since then, I've kind of changed my stance on that. I don't, as much as I enjoy the idea of beefing up that offensive line, I feel like there are plenty of guards in this draft that could be quite good in the 3rd to 4th round and be a huge improvement over anything Minnesota has. Even if Cleveland still starts at right tackle or right guard and Minnesota just replaces the left guard position, that's already just fine.
Yeah. Adam was talking about
Riley had a good year.
Talking about Kyle Rudolph in a 5th to turn into a 2, and he says that because the Vikings have 2 5th-round picks this year. They also have 3 4ths, and 2 3rds. So later on, they do have some ammo to move up. That'd be great. I hope they don't miss out on the 2nd round. I hope they can figure out a way to go up. That would be awesome. It doesn't have to mean you have to. That doesn't mean you have to give up. Way too much for that. But I would like to see something in there because that's where a guy like Dalvin Cook and Eric Kendricks fall. And they're there. Those are the guys you missed out on the 1st round, get overlooked. I'd like to see that talent fall for that price tag. That'd be great.
I don't know if there's a much better feeling than watching the NFL draft when your team isn't going to be on the clock for like about another 30 picks, and that little trade noise comes up and you see your team's logo, and you're like, oh my, what is it? What is it? It's just like so exciting, and it's such a little thing, but it gets that blood pumping immediately.
It's almost like when you get a notification on a post that you're really proud of on your social media.
It's true.
You're like, I want to see what they said. Sean Reynolds says Christian Barmore from Alabama, I believe, would be a stud defensive tackle. Yes, he would. They showed some of his stats in some of the social media pages I follow, and against the top teams in college football, he was feasting.
Now, we do have to kind of taper expectations on defensive tackle, though, because Minnesota seems to really like Shamar Stephen for some reason. Ugh. And I thought that he had a really poor year this year, and I don't think his play in previous seasons was that much better. So I'm not sure really what they see in him and what they're paying him for at this point. But unless they make the decision to move on from him, I think we might be stuck with Shamar Stephen again this year.
Now, I'm on Over the Cap, guys, and I was looking at it lists the players that cost the most on the team, starting with Kirk Cousins going their way down. I decided on this mock here to cut Kyle Rudolph. Shamar Stephen, as it stands right now, the cap number, he actually makes more than Michael Pierce. So I'd like to cut him too. But even if we cut both of those guys, we're still almost $2 million over. So you have to find somebody down the line to cut.
Is that including the cap rollover?
Yeah, it's I don't know. I'm not sure how that works. Total liabilities, projected salary cap at 184.2. Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure how that works. And then you keep going down the line. It's slim pickings. You have to get rid of some guys that are good contributors right now. I can't believe that. See, we're talking about, that's Brian O'Neill. I'm thinking of Riley Reef. I'm looking at these cap numbers coming down underneath Shamar Stephen. All these guys make less money than him. Michael Pierce.
Oh, yeah. Brian O'Neill's rookie deal is pretty sweet.
Mike Hughes, Britton Colquitt, Justin Jefferson, Irv Smith. There's a lot of guys on here. We can get rid of Drew Samia. I'm going to go ahead and cut him real quick. Yeah, now we're getting into the 900,000. So it's going to take a lot to get rid of these guys. So I don't know, man. Somebody big is going to have to walk, or if not the walk, there's going to be some restructuring next year for sure. That's what they do. That's what the Vikings do, though.
Yeah, we're going to see some cap magic. We are. We're going to see some cuts. And right now is the time for franchise and franchise tagging. And I don't expect to see Minnesota use either of their tags this year. But again, I also said the same thing last year, and then boom, here comes Anthony Harris with a tag.
Yeah, let's find him on here. Is he on that we can? Oh,
he's a free agent.
No, that's right. You can't do that. I do like this website, though. If you guys want to go mess around, you have the option over here to cut. You could do June 1st cut, trade, June 1st trade, restructure, or extend. So that's
now what we can root for is we can root for Anthony Harris to get a nice big contract somewhere to let the Vikings get a supplementary pick for him.
Yes.
Or a compensatory pick.
Cleveland makes the best sense there. Andrew Sendejo is still starting, and he should not be. He shouldn't be starting. I love Andrew Sendejo to death because he provided some huge hits to, that are a lot of fun to watch. But
such a physical player.
Yeah, Anthony Harris makes a lot of sense in Cleveland.
It's true.
Not sure if they have that money though. We can look at that later.
Oh yeah.
Oh, this is an interesting article too. We've kind of already been saying this too. Adam Patrick over on the Viking game says, Vikings fans, we need to have a talk about Deshaun Watson. It's not realistic. Yeah, and I believe we talked about it before on one of the episodes. Is he made sure to mention he did not want to come to Minnesota. That was one of the places he said he was not willing. So I don't really know how that would work. And the latest thing that I've heard, I think I was listening to Chris Sims on the way home. He's pretty much said that Houston, they're not really listening to offers right now. Now I think he's not going to be a Texan anymore myself. But as of right now, they're going to be going forward like he's going to be their starter. That's going to be pretty murky. But as of right now, yeah, he's still in Houston, and they're not really playing ball at this point, which I would if I was them. I would capitalize.
Well, here's my cynical view on this. Deshaun Watson is a big name. You throw that name around, you got something good. You talk about how bad Kirk Cousins is, you're going to get a reaction out of people. So the Minnesota market and even major media outlets are grabbing this hype that they're creating to send Minnesota a new quarterback in Deshaun Watson. And I'm about 80% sure that all of this is just for clicks.
Yeah.
Because as much as you think about this, the trade that Peter King threw together is as far from realistic as it gets. And I look at this and I see all these projections of Minnesota giving up 2 firsts and 2 players and stuff to bring in a quarterback along with Kirk Cousins to ship him out. I don't know if any quarterback that's available right now is worth throwing Kirk Cousins, all these picks, and some established starters into the mix for. I mean, it just blows my mind. I'll
jump in for a second. You were very choppy through that, so I'm not sure what was going on with the connection. Sorry, but we got most of it. I agree with you, man. I don't know. I don't know that bargaining all of that future is worth it. I think Deshaun Watson is an upgrade from Kirk Cousins, but at some point you have to understand. You have to think about it like the stock market and what your investment's going to be. Because if it doesn't work out or he gets injured, he already has an ACL surgery in his career. Is the Viking offensive line going to be a major upgrade from what the Texans were, which probably not. He's going to have better weapons here, sure, but the defense was terrible. What happens if he comes in and he disappoints? What if he plays all right, but he's a disappointment? You're going to be even more pissed off than you were with Kirk Cousins because, correct me if I'm wrong, Adam, but he costs more than Kirk, and it's not like, $1 million or $2 more. It's a little head scratching that they paid him that much. He makes a lot more money than Kirk because Kirk's deal over time doesn't rise steep. It kind of gradually increases and it starts to be more valuable.
Oh yeah, Watson's contract is very rich.
Yep. And I'm all for, teams like Seattle sticking with a guy like Russell Wilson because he's been really good and you want to show the love and he's been pretty consistent. Like, hey, I know what I'm getting out of him. It's kind of the Vikings' idea of it. I think I don't want to call Kirk Cousins like a bargain value, like a bargain bin quarterback or anything, but they found one that's reliable, that isn't flashy, but does the job well enough for what they want to do and what they think is, I guess, worth it investment-wise. I guess what I'm trying to say with that Deshaun Watson stuff is I just don't – it's so much of a risk because even if you get him and he plays okay, when do you have the extra cash to go get a free agent to help you, which is always helpful? And 2, that means you have to nail the draft every single year. And the draft is a crapshoot. We know that.
It's true.
So, I don't know. John Young, top 5 draft pick selections at number 14 that y'all would want. I don't know if we could do top 5 right now because I'm not prepared for that, but I know Adam can give you one and I can give you one because later as these shows get closer to the draft, John, we're going to do some talent evaluation. And maybe we could do something different this year, like maybe our big board per se and realistic ideas for this. I like that a lot. I'll tell you, I would like, and let Adam go right after. I like.
We're going to talk the same person.
Are we?
We are.
I don't think so. I want Kwity Paye. That's who I want.
Yeah.
I want him, man. I don't know that he's even going to get to 14.
Honestly. He won't.
I don't think he will. Just that thought of him and Danielle Hunter at the same time for 4 or 5 years straight, because what, Danielle Hunter's only 25. Dude, that's like 5 straight years of just murdering the opposite quarterback. And I want that kid so bad. Even if he's raw, the talent alone he'll get enough to figure it out to be like, dude, this guy might be a problem. And I really, really like that guy. We mentioned earlier, I know Sean has it right here. Christian Barmore wouldn't be upset with that. I don't know if he's valuable at 14. I don't know if that's his value, but I'm not mad at it. He's a very good player.
I like him.
I liked it's Devontae Smith. Is that his name? What's this? It's Alabama? The Heisman Trophy winner. I'm sorry. If he fell to 14, I wouldn't be upset. Patrick Surtain, very good corner from Alabama, wouldn't be upset with that. Pretty much what Adam was saying earlier. I would love an offensive lineman. I don't know if the value is going to be there at 14 to get one at a specific position, but all the ones that we just mentioned now, oh man, I would salivate. I'd be so happy if Kwity Paye fell to the Vikings at 14. He would be a monster for this team. Plus, I feel better. I know Adam, you do too. I feel better about this team and when they draft edge rushers. Most of the time, they nail it.
Right.
And even if it's a project, I mean, look what Danielle Hunter turned into. You know, this team just has a good history of getting after the quarterback. So
then again, Minnesota's best scout, arguably, has left and gone to Denver. So this is going to be some new evaluation going on in Minnesota.
I love it. John, to answer your question, yeah, just off the top of our head, that's what I see. That's who I want. Adam wants it too. And I thought, because I had mentioned Devontae Smith earlier, that he thought it'd be something else, but we're still on the same page. We love that guy.
We both know how much an edge rusher would improve that defense immediately. If you're looking for an impact player day one to come in and have help the Vikings win a game the most, you're looking at getting the best edge rusher in the draft.
Right. He probably doesn't have the value as a Chase Young did last year at number 2 overall, but if we're talking about by position, yeah, that's the name I keep seeing relevant-wise with the top edge rusher in the draft. This is going to be a really good draft. This is going to be a very, very good draft.
Wyatt Davis in the 3rd is possible. I would like to see Wyatt be around then, but the thing is as the more I research these offensive linemen in this draft, the more I see value in waiting on picking one, because that first round is just, there's so much talent there and there's not a lot of depth. Once you get past the first couple edge rushers, a lot of them start looking the same.
Yep. God, that's very well put, guys. That's very well put.
Offensive linemen, there are some stud offensive linemen in this draft that have been getting absolutely no attention as far as interior offensive line. There are guys that haven't given up a sack that aren't even in conversations to go in the first round.
You got to love that too for what that's going to turn into, because guys like that will just be motivated even more. And they're just going to do what offensive linemen do. They're going to shut up and they're going to block the shit out of people. And they're just going to do even better at their job. That's crazy.
I can't wait to see the chip that Justin Jefferson has going forward. Woo! After not getting Offensive Rookie of the Year. He was already had that chip for being passed up so many times in the draft. So, yeah, I mean, it's just going to be awesome to watch him use that to fuel his game.
Well, to piggyback on that too, he's already in the offseason started working out, and I like his whole attitude and what he represents, because he's a positive guy who he's in touch with his popularity and his culture and his fame and celebrity, but he's not a douche about it, which is really nice. He's not self-centered.
Yeah, he's still a rookie. Give him time.
Yeah. No, really, at the most diva position. Yeah, you're right. But he's even out there going up against Ocho Cinco, and it's all in fun because it's entertaining. But he's trying to get better already, and it's like, bro, you were already good. But I'm with you, man. He should have gotten the Rookie of the Year. He's going to get even better in the system. They're going to feature him more than they did last year. I think they figured out like a couple weeks in. They're like, oh, shit, we should probably get this kid involved. So he's going to be really good. I have a question for everyone because I did this on Pro Football Focus's mock simulator a couple times. Would you guys be okay? Because we were talking about quarterbacks earlier and backup quarterbacks. Would you guys be all right with Sam Ehlinger coming in the 5th round or maybe one of those later 4th round picks as a backup? I like the kid, man. He has a lot of heart. I don't think he's ever going to beat Kirk Cousins for a starting job, but he's a definite upgrade. Definite upgrade over Sean Mannion. Is anybody opposed to taking a quarterback in the 4th or the 5th round this year?
Not at all.
Oh, man. Vices, you'll have to explain to me what is that Thailand will like next year. Thailand? I don't understand. Justin Jefferson,
Now,
offensive player
some of the
year.
stuff that blows my mind is Micah Parsons dropping in every mock draft. That Penn State linebacker, he can do it all. He really can. And if somehow he gets to Minnesota, I don't know if you pass him up either.
I certainly hope that they don't. I think Mike Zimmer could find a lot of use for him. He instantly upgrades the depth there. He'll be a starter, but he would instantly upgrade the depth there because the guys that were starting get to be fresh off the bench. And, to piggyback on your point there, if you get a guy like that, you're watching the evolution of the NFL because he's a safety and a linebacker hybrid. He is so fast to get to the ball, and God, he's an athlete. And look at what the Super Bowl just showed us. If you can have those really aggressive, really badass linebackers, they can do some damage. Now, the Bucs kind of had turned everything on at the right time, got hot when they needed to get hot. But, yeah, I wouldn't be upset with that pick at all. I think that'd be a great value because he's been early on in those projections and those mocks. He was top 10 for sure.
Yeah, and I don't think you can really go wrong with any of the Alabama linemen in this draft. I don't think you can. I've been showing some of the profiles and stuff to the guys in the podcast and the draft, and it's just interesting to see, like Landon Dickerson, Alex Leatherwood. Those guys are going to be lower in the draft because they're interior linemen. Of course, offensive tackles are going to be the preference when it comes to selecting players because they're the higher profile players. They're arguably more important, which I'd argue that. But at the top, it's so top heavy that once you get past the top players who are offensive tackles, the interior linemen, the top one on CBS's prospect rankings is Wyatt Davis at 17, which, yeah, that's close to where the Vikings would be picking. But based on looking down this chart and seeing all these other players, like Vera Tucker and Deontay Brown, Alex Leatherwood, you kind of sit there and you wonder, okay, if I use my pick there, I'm going to miss out on players that, of course, aren't at a position of depth in this draft. And, of course, a lot of Minnesota Vikings fans want a lot of players, and, of course, all of them aren't going to be able to land. The Minnesota's going to need to replace a starting safety. They may have to get a starting defensive tackle. We already know that they need a starting left guard at the least.
Oh.
Depth at wide receiver is not good. So, yeah, I mean, there are a lot of gaps that Minnesota needs to fill, but some of them can be done beforehand in free agency with some bargain basement signings just to raise the floor a little bit before the draft. Or, of course, there's the option to wait and see how your draft goes, and then kind of pigeonhole yourself in free agency. This is why being an NFL GM would be so tough.
It'd be super stressful.
Yeah.
And to say pigeonhole, that's another great way to put it because I think the Vikings are kind of there already with the cap. They're not going to be able to they already lost players from last year. They can't really get back. Rhodes and Mackenzie Alexander, Trey Waynes, all those guys. So you can't get those guys back. You got to rely on the young guys to do the job. And then you don't have the money to go find someone who could be at the depth because you're pretty much strapped right now. So I don't like that job. I don't ever want to be a GM of a football team.
And you got Vikings fans on Twitter mad because Minnesota's probably not going to go after guys like Sue in free agency. And that's the most divisive one right now. Half the Vikings fans seem like to want to go get Sue for this defense, and half the Vikings fans want nothing to do with him.
I'm with John Young for you guys that listen later on in the podcast and aren't watching live on YouTube right now. Kwity Paye, Hunter, Michael Pierce, James Lynch, insert Lynch. Yes, put him in there. And Danielle Hunter. That's a pretty monstrous D line. I'm with it, man. I like that lineup a lot.
I could work with that. And then coming out of the draft, I loved Lynch. Very productive in college. Mm-hmm. I was surprised he didn't see more time, but I'm ready to see him do it. And you know what? I like a lot of the depth at defensive end to grow and develop as well. So they can have some contributors come in, do their thing. This team isn't broken. They struggled last year. The offense was fantastic. They could get a little bit better with some protection, but they overall were fantastic. Defense was just giving up way too many points, and playing catch up was not great.
Yeah, the offense was very much, I wouldn't even say efficient. The offense was really good. Guys stayed healthy. Guys showed what they're made of. Rookies stood out. But, yeah, I think going forward, depending on the edge rushing available, the run stopping available, that's where it starts. That's how it trickles down and takes the pressure off of the secondary and the linebackers. Like I said earlier, man, I got a good feeling about this year. I think this is a super bounce-back year for the Vikings. If they can nail this draft and just find some decent pieces in the bargain bin, as we were talking about in free agency, I think this team's good enough for to get to a run, maybe to a conference championship, if they can just figure that out defensively, because it's not going to be that consistent forever. You're not going to have the top 10 defense, top 5 defense every single year. We knew last year going in that was probably going to be the issue, and it was. So at least it wasn't a surprise, but we got some guys coming back that are going to change that. These are significant names that we've been talking about with Pierce and Hunter. So,
other than Paye, do you have a draft crush heading into the draft this year?
No, that's it. That's my draft crush, 100%. Kyle West, even though he's not here, he's working this week. He said, I said, would you rather go after the other team's quarterback and build your D-line, or would you rather protect your own? And he said, I've kind of gotten like PTSD from how shitty the guards were last year. So he would rather protect Kirk, which I totally understand, and totally that's cool. But I want to see this team get after the quarterback, because you know it, Adam. You've been a fan of this team longer than I have, and probably everyone in the comments here. Historically, the Vikings are known for just having nasty defensive linemen.
And it's so weird to see this team without it.
It's awful. It broke my heart, because those are momentum and game-changing players in moments, and they didn't have any of that last year. And
it's I said last week, when I went to that game at US Bank Stadium against Detroit, and they sacked Stafford 10 times. It's just
that's crazy.
It feels impossible now.
Between you and I, me going to the Carolina game, the year they got Bradford right after the Panthers went to the Super Bowl, and then you go into there were 19 sacks between 2 games in this team.
Ridiculous.
That's crazy, man. And they were terrible last year. They didn't get any pressure. They couldn't stop the run. That Saints game on Christmas Day was just pitiful. So,
but yeah, Kyle West isn't too far off. If you were trying to fix the offense, inserting a one quality guard can make you look at that offense, it's the starting offense, and say, okay, we're set.
Yeah.
That's all that would take. Defense has more pieces you need to fix, and that's why my draft crush this year. I'm waiting for a drum roll. No, don't do drum roll. All right. Paris Ford. Pitt safety Paris Ford. This guy is a playmaker. He's got size. He's got instincts. I don't know how he's rated so low on draft boards. If Minnesota can somehow hold off and get him in the 3rd, or maybe even trade up a little bit into the late 2nd or something, they could have themselves a quality starter. And I know they've invested so much in corners that they're going to invest a lot in their defensive line. being able to throw a draft pick on a safety to be able to ensure that they've got some coverage, some pass rushing, so a little bit of everything. Ah, man, what that kid can do is just amazing.
I like it. I'm going to do my due diligence on this guy's highlights and watch his tape because I want to see what the hype is. And I'll put my stamp on it. If Adam Carlson thinks this guy's going to be awesome, I'm going to say he's probably going to be awesome. So, yeah, that's cool. I don't have a sexy pick, guys. You already know what mine was from earlier, but we have our reasons. I like that we both went defense. I was very surprised that Adam didn't go with an offensive lineman because he can find all the good ones. But, hey, you know, for the value in that weird spot we're sitting at, because what's cool about the Vikings, too, being at 14, like I think 2 spots up at San Francisco, that's a playoff team if Jimmy G is not hurt. And I truly believe that. They were in the Super Bowl a year ago. So they're not looking for, you know, this position, that position. It seems like if everything goes sort of the way that we think the draft's going to go, one of these players that fans, number one, but also the management really, really likes at a good value is going to be there. It's not like, you know, 13, somebody's going to snag away the guy that you really, really wanted and then you're screwed. You know, there's going to be plenty of options. So, because the other thing that's going to happen too, and I truly believe this, people are going to overpay for a quarterback like a bunch of idiots, like they always do. Lawrence is going to go number 1. He's the number 1 pick.
Oh, yeah.
Fields probably, or the kid from it's not Zach Wilson, is it from BYU? Yeah, the BYU kid. Yeah. Fields or Wilson is going to go at 2, but somebody's going to go up to get the kid from North Dakota State. That's going to happen. But I could see 4 quarterbacks going in the top 10, and they shouldn't. But teams are going to get desperate because they want to find that next guy
right
to come in on that rookie deal, and that's the formula. But God, you risk a lot doing that. But hey, the Vikings aren't going to do that. They're not going to risk it. They have their quarterback, so I think that's going to shape shift everything to there's a guy that fell because all these people were doing all these moving pieces in the first 13 picks, and holy shit, this guy's available at 14. Boom, Vikings nailed it again in the first round.
And Minnesota doesn't have to go a specific direction with a pick. They really don't.
Nope. Christian Darrisaw sounds familiar. I don't know off the top of my head. I'll look that up, John. Man, you guys are killing it in the chat, man. We didn't have that much to talk about, but we're almost an hour in now. That's great.
It is. It's nice to see. But yeah, Virginia Tech, Darrisaw. I'm not really sure on the need, but if that's the pick, that's the pick, I'll support it.
Well, it's good too, is we still have about 2 months till the draft is here as well. Free agency starts around my birthday, usually every year on the 10th of March. So you got to think there's going to be more reasons to see who's going to be where, because once free agency starts, the Vikings can kind of do what they want, let go of people, go after people, blah, blah, blah. But, oh, man, we still have a long time until the draft, so we've got time.
Good, lots of time for mocks.
Yeah, you know, there people are already on their 3rd versions of mock drafts. It's not even March yet, so it must be cool to have all that time. But I don't know how it changes, especially outside of like the top 5. You know what that's going to be pretty much every year.
Yeah, if you're doing Jaguars mocks, it's that first pick ain't going to change too much.
Yeah, that's a good pick to have though. Like I think that kid's going to be really good. I don't know if you guys watched Trevor Lawrence's pro day. I've been following him in college the whole time. I'm a North Carolina Tar Heel fan, and he's in the ACC. He's been amazing. I've
watched one full Trevor Lawrence game, and that was the one game where he really struggled.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of an anomaly because it doesn't happen hardly ever. And
Ohio State gave him problems.
Oh yeah. I liked his pro day though. He could have came out and thrown 4 balls and just walked away because he just got such a good touch. Good luck to Jacksonville. You finally have a decent quarterback down there though, and a cool position for a head coach there with Urban Meyer coming in. I didn't think I'd see him in the NFL, but that's cool.
I've actually got an article coming out within the next day or two about cheap wide receivers that the Vikings might be able to look at. Yes. Free agency, and there's not a lot of names on there that are going to drop people's jaws. I mean, I didn't put like Nelson Aguilar and the guys that are going to make decent paydays, right? Because like Deshaun Jackson's, he's going to make some money, and let's be honest, Vikings ownership might not be comfortable bringing him in.
Yeah.
Just to avoid the political aspect of it, I guess. I'll say it that way. And they're not going to be able to afford Allen Robinson or any of the top tier people by any means. So I went for the realistic targets that Minnesota might be able to pursue. And there are a couple out there, and a couple of them are former Jaguars receivers who I feel didn't even really get a chance to show off their talent where they were. It sucks when you're a quality player or a quality employee wherever you're working and you work for a terrible company.
I can say it now because I don't have any affiliation. But yes, United States Air Force, I'm looking at you. Oh, no, I wasn't in a bad company. The NFL's not a bad company. I was just on a bad team. That's what it was. But yeah, I get that. The Jaguar wide receiver core from this past season, very underrated. Not to poo-poo on your boy Gardner Minshew, because I do like him a lot, but they had Mike Glennon throwing the ball most of the year. He's not that good.
I like Gardner, though. Gardner can get things done.
I do, too.
But I don't know if he's going to end up being an NFL starter.
I don't think so. We'll see. I hope that article has Cordero Patterson making his way back. I hope that article has Jarius Wright coming out of free agency and coming back. Let's just get the 2015.
There are no former Vikings on it.
Boo. I'm going to read it anyways because I want to see what names you have on there. I want to see who's out there that I maybe have heard of in passing and be like, oh, cool, I'm going to take a look at this guy. But that's a great transition because we're about to hit an hour, and I don't have much else to talk about if you don't. You can promote some stuff and call it a night.
We do need our Survival League winner to reach out to us.
Yeah, I did make a post about this. I did post that a couple weeks ago.
So if you don't follow us on Facebook or anything like that, you can email us, purplepeoplepodcast@gmail.com, or hit us up on Twitter or Facebook or wherever you can get a hold of us, because we need your address so we can start getting together your prize package.
Yeah, there it is. If you won the Survival League, shoot us an email, shoot us a message on Facebook like Adam was saying. Go back and dig through our posts. I know I post at least one thing. I'll do it again. We're not going to make a deadline right this second, but if we don't hear anything, we're going to have to find creative ways to find you. We might have to move on. So get that to us, man. We want to get you your stuff because you won the Survival League, which is really cool. And that's a motivator for all you guys in the comments watching and on the chat. He didn't have to pay to do this. This is all because we like you guys and we support you supporting us. So there you go.
Next week, we're going to come back, and there still shouldn't be a lot of really cool Vikings news. But if we can get all three of us together for our next show, yep. I think that the plan is to do our awards show for the season, yep. which we've been kind of wanting to do, but having to put off a little bit. So that's our goal for next week. So if you guys want to start thinking of a few awards that you'd like to give out or ask us to give out, let us know, because I think that would be a lot of fun. And I'd love to see it happen.
I'm going to write this in the chat just in case.
That
actually worked out too, because we haven't done it yet, and this is a very slow period. I'm very surprised we got an hour's worth of a show tonight, but that's really good for us because and that gives us more stuff to put out to you guys. And that usually, knock on wood, hopefully it does the same, but that's usually a very interactive show. People love to hear about awards and top fives and lists and stuff like that, so we're happy to do it.
It's true. It is absolutely true.
All right, let's promote some stuff. He's not here, but I will throw his stuff up there for you. Kyle West is out making his living, so shout out to him. He'll be back soon with us. If you check out his website here on Redbubble, Phantasm Digital has, I think that's his handle. You can check out his photography work. He does really, really good stuff, guys. And, aside from being our friend and one of our hosts on the show, genuinely, if you like photography and go check out his stuff and see the kind of work that he does, and just support local business, support small business. This will certainly help him out. Also, if you like the show, and we promote it every week, and you want to get anything of the Purple People podcast that you can think of on pretty much any item that you could print, T-shirts, pillowcases, phone cases, mouse pads, you name it. They're all in there. You can get custom cups. I know a lot of people do those tumbler Yeti style drinkware and stuff. You can get it on there. But he's got a lot of cool stuff that he updates, I think, monthly or every other month for his photographs there. So you should check out his photography work. If you want to support the show, you can.
Hey, look, there's my stuff. I'm a contributor over at the Viking Age, where I put out articles every once in a while about the Minnesota Vikings, talk about how I feel about the team and some things that might be going on or of it that interest me. I also do the same over at Undead Walking, where I talk about zombies. My latest article over there was talking about an actress who used to be on The Walking Dead, but is now on a show called Mr. Mayor, which is very, very funny on NBC. So it's not only about zombies, if that's what you're into. I also did an article over there on the new show Clarice, which also has a lead actor that used to be on The Walking Dead, and I'm enjoying that show as a fan of Silence of the Lambs. So if you're into that, it's worth checking out as well. I'm not on Twitch very much at all anymore because as the time has gone by, my internet out here seems to be getting worse and worse. So unless I can start hooking up to that Elon Musk internet, I might be in some trouble.
Elon Musk internet.
Yeah, what is it? Starnet? Is that what it's called?
I haven't even heard of it, but just the thought of it would be something outrageous and awesome. I mean, the guy makes flamethrowers, so
yeah, it's satellite internet, and the satellites are heated. So even if I were to put up a satellite here at my house, if it snowed, it would melt the ice right off of it, and I wouldn't even have to touch it. I thought that was really cool.
That's so funny.
But it's also $500 to buy the equipment, and then $100 a month.
Yeah, no, that's gonna be a no for me, dog.
But you live where there's internet. See, that's the difference.
No, I get it. I mean, I totally understand what you're saying, but I could never justify that much money for that per month. That's more than my insurance and my car, my phone bill, all that. No, I'm good.
Yeah, but for me, working at home, it makes a lot of sense since I don't commute to work and I work from home. That's
true. That's a good point.
So for me, it makes sense, but laying down $500 for that welcome package, I don't know. That's tough to throw down on something where I don't even know if it's able to be streamed on. But it would be nice to be able to stream on some of these streaming services in 4K, because my internet's so slow that even services that do offer 4K, I don't think it gets there. I don't think it gets anywhere near there. But yeah, otherwise, go give us a like and follow over on Twitch. I saw that we've tripled our Twitch following since last time I checked it, which is pretty cool. Nice to see that happen.
I can definitely get behind that.
We've got, of course, Facebook Live, where I think some of you guys check us out.
Yeah.
Which is nice. And of course, YouTube is always the best place to see us, because then you can see our pretty faces. You can see the full archive of shows that are available, at least the ones that I don't think have been put on hold because of DCMA strikes. Yeah, we used to use some intro music that may not have been ours. So yeah, we got some strikes. I think they're still here, but we can't monetize them. Not that we monetize anyway, but
right.
We just do this because we love it.
Yeah, I was telling one of my coworkers that today. I was like, I'll probably do my podcast tonight. He's like, oh, you do a podcast? That's cool. How long have you been doing that? I was like, fuck, almost 8 years. Who knew it was gonna be that many? But hey, it's been a fun ride, and then watching this show grow. We talk about this from time to time, but it's came a long way. And I haven't even been here for the whole part of it. The fact that these guys used to pre-record and do notes and have stuff laid out, and it was no fault of your guys' own, but just how archaic it kind of looks now.
It is, yeah.
And
going back to the shows.
I remember being in a house when I was married, and we're doing Skype audio, and here we are commenting with you guys in real time like we're the Pat McAfee show or something. That's cool. I'll take that. And
of course, now we're available pretty much anywhere that you can find podcasts. Yep. A buddy of mine was he was looking for a new podcast to listen to on Spotify the other day, and he said, "Dude, did you guys know you're on Spotify?" I was like, "Oh yeah, we're on Spotify.
Right.
We're on Google Podcasts. We're all over the place." But yeah, we got in on the ground floor of this podcast situation and been doing it a long, long time. We ain't no rookies to this stuff. So I'm glad that we've had some people that have stuck with us all along the way, that we've been able to pick up some really cool people that are really able to join us and join the conversation and ask us questions, make comments. We love all that stuff. So thank you so much for joining us. On that note, if you do see something that you like on the show, or you do want to help us grow and expand, sharing us on your social media would be super awesome. Commenting is cool. Liking, subscribing, whatever, all that stuff that everybody has to do on whatever social media platform you're on. We'd appreciate that too if you want to. And just stay classy, Minnesota.